Hey friends, welcome to the Lucky Few podcast, where we are shifting the narrative by shouting the worth of people with Down syndrome. This is Heather here, and today we have a fun and unique episode for you. Mercedes, Micah, and I got to join a group of lovely ladies for a live hangout with our dear friend, Jessica Patay. Jessica is the founder of an organization called We Are Brave Together. We Are Brave Together is a nonprofit that focuses on strengthening, encouraging, inspiring, and validating all special needs moms. So we got to get together with her and a handful of other moms who have kids with disabilities and special needs and have a really great time together. I hope you enjoy our conversation. Welcome to the Lucky Few podcast. Our sponsor this week is Jonas Paul Eyewear. They are on a mission to help kids feel beautiful and confident in their glasses. With at-home try-on kits that cost only $1 and prescription glasses starting at $79, including prescription lenses, Jonas Paul Eyewear is the place to go for glasses for your child and your teen. Visit jonaspauleyewear.com to learn more.
So I think this, like all of us being in this space right now, makes a lot of sense what we want to talk about tonight, because we titled this time together. So everything's going wrong. Now what? Because the entire world is struggling right now. And every parent, regardless of their kids' abilities, is struggling right now. And I think for all of us, mamas of kids who already require so much extra, every need and challenge in our lives is just magnified right now. And so we're all just moving because that's easy. So we just want to talk through that with all of you. And we're going to tell stories. We're going to share about what we're learning along the way tonight. And our ultimate hope is that we can encourage you and remind you that you, friends, are enough for this moment. And so is your perfect kid.
And I want to say too, and we say this on our podcast, that we are not experts in any regard. We don't claim to know more than anyone that we're having a conversation with ever. We are just three parents who are doing the best we can and processing that with each other and anyone who will listen. And so we just want to preface that as well. And yesterday when I was talking to Mike and Mercedes a little bit more and tightening up what it was that we wanted to share with you, I was on Instagram scrolling along as people do, and there was this poem that came up that felt so timely for me. Remember, there was about 3 hours yesterday where I thought I was moving for a week, and homeless for 5 weeks by my choice, sort of. But on top of everything, school just started for us, which I'll talk a little bit about. My middle daughter goes to a Spanish dual immersion school, a charter school that started 2 weeks ago. And my son and daughter who have Down syndrome go to our community school. My daughter just started junior high, and they started on Thursday. And sometimes I cuss, but I'll just spell it out. It is an SHIT show right now in our home. And then it's all compiled on what is happening to every person, right? And then you layer that on top of having a child with a disability. And then you layer that on top of, name it. There's so many things. So this poem came up by this poet called Morgan Harper Nichols. Suggest heading on social media or anywhere and searching for her. She has books and she's just an insane talent. And it spoke to my soul, and especially as a mother raising children with disabilities. So I thought of all of you, and I'm going to read this poem to all of you right now. And then we're going to go forward. We have 4 scenes that we've created to share tonight. And we're going to go scene by scene and get us to a place where hopefully everyone leaves feeling a little fuller, a little lighter, a little more able to do the thing that we have to do no matter what, and to be able to do it with a little more joy. So here is this poem by Morgan Harper Nichols. She writes, "Remember the mountains already behind you. Remember the mornings you already made it through. Remember the unexpected change that made you stronger. Remember any little thing that reminds you it's worth it to hang on longer. For in this life, you will find winding paths through endless rows of trees. And you will also find, when you get to the river, the unknowns do not keep you from knowing peace. The water is still flowing. You are still growing. You are not out of sight of endless, boundless, glorious light. You have already come so far. Trust. For these new unknowns, you are more prepared for the journey than you think. So moving forward, I'm gonna have everybody put on your imagination caps, if you will, if that's something that you remember how to do from childhood. And think about this, our next minutes together, our next moments together. Think about a situation or a play in which you are the heroine of your story that's unfolding right now. And this play, things begin to go wrong in scene 1, and by scene 4, all sanity has gone out the door. Maybe some of you tonight are on scene 10 and things are still feeling a little bit nutty. And also somewhere in there, you the hero, you realize that you are more prepared for this than you ever thought. And there have been so many layers, like we were mentioning before, to these long 5 months of pandemic. So let's start at the beginning of each one. We're calling Things Are Hard, Now What?
Things are hard. Now what? Scene 1. I want you guys to picture a year ago this week. I took Ace, my then 4.5-year-old with Down syndrome, to his yearly checkup at the Down syndrome clinic. After a summer of just the most ridiculous sleeping issues I'd ever experienced as a mom. He was waking up every night for 2 to 3 hours, laughing and jumping on the bed. And everything I tried to do, I laid on top of him. I locked every door and just tried to go back to sleep with pillows over my head. I gave him deep massage. We did it all, right? Every night. I take him to this doctor's appointment knowing in my gut what the doctor was going to say, because it had been a 1.5 years since all the Down syndrome books had told me it was time for him to start talking. And there was always a reason. Well, his ears have been stopped up. Once he gets the tubes in his ears, he just hasn't been able to hear well. And he'll start to catch on. He'll start to get some speech. And I had watched slowly even the signs that he had, the animal signs we used to do together when he read books, just kind of dissolve before my eyes. And I knew going into this appointment, she's going to say that I need to get him tested for autism. And when she said it, I held it together. I knew, but man, I got in the car and just sobbed my eyes out. Like, I think I had all those years to know, like, this is what Down syndrome means. Like, these are the things that he can still do. He has Down syndrome, but I know what a life of like flourishing is going to look like for him. And just clinging to hope after hope that speech was just a little delayed and it was going to come. And it was a little bit like a slamming door on that dream for me as I drove away from that appointment. A month later, 3 weeks later, we got in pretty fast. I got the actual diagnosis. And a couple of days before that diagnosis, Ace and I fell down some stairs. And I'm actually pretty proud. My instinctual mother skills, like I grabbed that kid's head while we were falling down backwards and boom, totally saved him from, brain smashing. But the brain that got smashed was mine. So I tried to rest for a couple of days jumped back into things, got this autism diagnosis, and my concussion symptoms just kept coming back stronger and stronger and stronger. I would try to get back at things, and I was so fuzzy that I would bang my head over and over for months. And this was the catalyst for the past year leading up to COVID, because I still had the fuzziness, the concussion feelings, the banging of my head every time I crawled to like sweep up crumbs. And that turned into months of migraines and me in bed, where I had gone from this, like, I am going to save him. He's got a dual diagnosis, but if I get these interventions, if I can be super mom, if I can drive him to a few more therapies, if I can like do this literacy program I paid for, that I don't need to print these books out, we're going to be okay. And I'm going to make it the best possible scenario of a kid having autism and Down syndrome. And those migraines would throw me back into bed. And the most I would be able to do is let him crawl on top of me and like sing Itsy Bitsy Spider with him. And how am I supposed to save him? How am I supposed to be super mom when I can't get myself out of the bed? And now it's March and the world is on fire. There's a pandemic and I'm not even getting him the intervention he needs. It's all online and I'm still having these migraines in bed. What do you do when you're the super mom and you've always tried to be the super mom and you're going to save your own kid by just sacrificing everything, right? And suddenly you're the one that needs to be taken care of. Mercedes, scene 2.
Ew. Oh man. So a week before lockdown, we were in the hospital with our Sunflower. She had pneumonia and another virus, so blanking on the name. And I was at home with our 3 kids. So usually I'd be the one to go with Sunflower to the hospital, but my husband had to because I have a nursing baby. So he was in the hospital. I was with our 3 boys at home, and the word was trying to get out. There's a pandemic. And I don't know if you guys remember. You guys obviously remember. It felt like the apocalypse. Like, it felt like we need to be scared. There's literally everybody sick, and you're going to get it. Like, it was so scary. And we are new for about a year. We've lived in Redlands, so I'm fairly new. So I have like a handful, Heather being one of them, of people to like call on. But our church, our newer church came around us, and I was being taken care of. But it was still really scary to be so new and to have my daughter in the hospital with pneumonia, and plus a hospital during a pandemic, a COVID, like it's illness. That's the last place I want my husband there, or Sunflower with a lung issue. It was frightening, and it didn't seem like it was going to stop anytime soon. I remember feeling frantic, heavy, and a little hopeless. I remember feeling like Sunflower's there. She's got pneumonia. She's for sure going to also get COVID. She recovered after 6 days. She came home, but then needed to be on oxygen for 2 weeks, 24/7. Now, my daughter's pretty spunky. And as soon as she got home, she ripped that mask right off and didn't wear it the whole time. It was frightening, but just her being home, like being home, take care of her, manage. She wore her mask at night because her oxygen would dip at night. But during the day, she was able to run around. And I remember feeling the sense of like I have a whole new view on home. You know, when COVID started, our home really became our shelter. And I'm constantly having to remind myself to keep going because it feels like a hamster wheel and I'm not getting enough to do. So I got to keep going.
What's so interesting is hearing both the stories is, you know, as parents, there's a sense of keep going and it looks so different. And so how do you lean in? Like with Micah, you know, I think that's a big question that we're finding ourselves asking more and more. And I can look back at when my eldest daughter, she had so many health issues and she came home and there were moments that, you know, it's like that day by day, sometimes minute by minute, how are we going to get through this? And not just because parenting's hard, but because we're dealing with life and death situations with kids who have medical issues, or we're dealing with larger issues when we have a kid with a disability in these scenarios. So the question is, right, we've got COVID hitting, Mike is in bed with a concussion that will not go away. Ace isn't getting the things that he needs. Sunflower had been in the hospital while Michelle was to be home nursing a newborn baby. And so how do we lean in to this kind of difficulty and this kind of pain to make us stronger for ourselves and our kids? I'm sure all of you have ways, but maybe some of you are like me too, even this far into where we're at in the pandemic situation, that I mostly still just have a bad attitude about it. And and the leaning in, and how do we lean in? What does that look like?
Yeah. And I think that a lot of us have experienced a little more of that this summer as we have been trying to reimagine what summer is supposed to be. Mm-hmm. So why don't we put our imagination caps back on? And let's move on to scene 2. Scene 2, things are still hard. And now summer is here. And summer is not looking like the summer you were looking forward to all year, because you can't fly to Iowa to visit your 90-year-old grandmother.
That's me.
And that special anniversary trip with the Hubs that you'd been planning for the past year and a half to Hawaii is canceled, along with everything else that's been canceled. And what does it mean to enter into the struggle of summer when it's not the summer you thought it was going to be? What does that mean to you guys, Heather or Mercedes?
I know for us, we decided I homeschool, so we just kept homeschooling. And I focused on outdoor activities as much as possible, a lot of summer books and crafts. I just basically needed a routine for myself, because I would wake up and be like, okay, we literally can't go anywhere but the beach or on a hike. And I have little ones. So that feels very daunting after like the third day. I'm exhausted. So I just kept going with our curriculum, and I just stuck to a year-round schedule. And I think that's also maybe why I don't want to start school. I'm just kind of tired of school. I have no more lesson plans. No, I have some, but my creativity is being stretched because there hasn't been a moment, you know, there's no stop. So that's my plan, that we are gonna just keep on keeping on with school, and that's what we did, and it's worked really well for us. I focused a lot more on tours. I'm telling you, I went into like Little House in the Prairie mode. I'm like, this is our homestead, and we are hunkering down. We have roles to fill here, and that's worked for us, and it's been kind of fun. But most of all, I've really seen in Sunflower, who's my daughter who has Down syndrome, a real independence and a real know-how. I think actually not having a lot of things on our schedule has really allowed her, I don't know, to grow in her own pace and to grow really in the areas of like life skills, you know, which has been, I think as the oldest and the only girl, I feel that confidence in her, and I feel like she has grown in confidence because she desires to help, even when it's not very helpful. Don't tell her, it's not very helpful. She desires to help. And I don't know, I've been really impressed with how much she stepped up within our family chores and things around the house. And I felt more encouraged to let her do that, because what else would we be doing? We're not moving, we're not going, or we are moving, but we're not going to appointments. The day is not moving really fast. So the just be in this home and in this summer has been really nice, I think, for Sunflower's growth.
Yeah. And it's just funny because all of our kids are so different, and we're all so different. And so the Avis family is a go family. Last summer, 2019, remember back in 2019, 2019, we were only home 2 weeks in the whole summer. And so that's what we like to do. And the kids do too. And we have our moments, a lot of moments that are incredibly challenging, but it's the choice that we make to do that. And so the adjustment for us to be home, it just felt like a big adjustment for us. My oldest daughter is an extrovert through and through. Who has Down syndrome, my younger son, who also has Down syndrome. I mean, he is living his best life, COVID. He's like in his room, happy as can be, he and his toys and his family. That's all he needs in life. He's so happy. We'll go to the beach for the day, and halfway through the day, he's like, can we just go home? Like, oh my gosh, we've literally been home for 60 days. Like, no, we're at the beach today, son. You're going to suck it up. So it's just I share that because it's just such different experiences and personalities and needs and things that we can access and things that we can't access. And this scare that, this underlying idea that COVID is going to affect people with disabilities at a higher rate than it is people without disabilities. And where do our kids fall into that? And it's just, the weight felt unbearable. And so for us, what we did is just make big decisions, like how we decide to buy a house from a yard sale. So we got a dog, we got a COVID dog. And we've been wanting a dog for a super long time, for years and years. But like I shared, we're a go family, and having a puppy and having a dog, you have to be home. So I look at my sweet dog. She came home a day in March. And I'm so thankful. And I would not have had her otherwise, because if you have a puppy, you got to be home all the time for this puppy until you don't. But even now that we can be home with her, and that's been a gift that I have to remind myself, because like I shared with you guys, in all honesty, my attitude still really sucks about everything happening. I'm in and out. It is the roller coaster called Avis Family during a pandemic. And some of you may be on that roller coaster. Others, it's a little less bumpy, more like a carousel. Mine is a roller coaster. But I love our dog. Her name is Maybe. She's so sweet. And then we did this really sweet thing with my family, because we're supposed to go to Iowa to see my grandma, who's 91. No, she's not. She's 96. And that couldn't happen for lots of reasons. And so I have two sisters, and we went up to my parents' house in the local mountains, and we made our own little family camp. And we did like matching t-shirts and itinerary. And it was just 4 days, and we all got COVID tested before we gathered together. All the adults did. And those kinds of things, that's almost like something like what's happening right now forces your hand. That's what I've felt. It forces you into another space. And so for me, it's the roller coaster of, I find myself sometimes just only frustrated, and then other times so grateful for a puppy dog who has been such a sweet gift that would not have happened without COVID, or this family camp that was such a sweet gift that would not have happened without COVID. So it's important for me, when we're talking about leaning in, to remember those things and to hold them quite tightly with both fists, and have them a part of my thoughts as often as possible. Part of my leaning in.
I love that. And I think that it just occurs to me that this is something that we, as moms of kids with disabilities, know how to do, how to lean into something new, how to believe that something that is different can still be absolutely wonderful. And I think that this COVID summer has pushed us probably to new spaces of what it means to lean in that way. But, just like how Mercedes has turned into the homesteader and made her house into Little House on the Prairie, or the people who have gone on road trips that they never intended to go on, or, having your first cousin's camp like Heather, making summer still wonderful but different, and finding new ways to embrace this constant togetherness, recognizing that different can still be wonderful.
That's right. And so that's the end of scene 2. And we're going into scene 3, which is about school. So bless us all. By a show of hands or like a thumbs up. And this is what all the teachers are doing right now. So stay on mute, but just show your hand. That's right. You gotta do your video. You gotta unmute yourself. Can you mute yourself? Can you unmute yourself? Mute yourself. Hey, Giovanni, you gotta mute yourself. This is like all day. This is what's happening. Who started school? Who's in school? Oh, you guys. Okay. Sarah might have some better news for you. But let's just head to scene 3, where now we're in school, and all I long for is a COVID summer in which I needed out of the COVID summer. But it's what's happening, what I have found happening, and this is prior to my kids starting school, but as things are unfolding, I think most of us are in California. Not everybody is. Districts are different, but most California, I think, is the same. But everybody is having to shift and adjust. And I think that when it comes to our education systems, my experience has been that people with disabilities are already thought of secondary. The system wasn't built with our kids in mind. It's not a broken system. It wasn't built for our kids. So if we're going to completely shift the system, then it doesn't feel surprising that it's shifting in a way in which our kids with disabilities are not being considered. I know that's not the case for everyone, but I find that to be the most common story. And so I think I see already with my kids who have Down syndrome, the struggle that is distance learning for them that I don't see for my child who is neurotypical and able-bodied. And the way that distance learning is set up is a magnifying glass on the disparities that already existed within the education system, whether that's disability or financial, socioeconomic, or a single mom, or whatever. Obviously, this is a soapbox I can stand on for a long time, but I'm going to pass it over to Micah, because what do we do? What do we do? And this can be an open discussion at some point. Maybe it'll turn into a therapy session for me. I don't know. We'll figure it out. But what do we do? What are things looking like right now? Micah Boyette.
Well, I can tell you that for me, part of this major life transition that we're choosing is recognizing as we spent the past year really struggling with, should we be staying in San Francisco? A major factor was the fact that we had all this family support on the East Coast, and we knew how much more funding there is for special education in New York State, in New Jersey. And the more research I did, the more I was astounded. And so it was a combination of those things that led us to this point of choosing to make this move. And so, I'm one of those people who's choosing to move my family across the country right now. And of course, this was like this decision we were making prior to the pandemic, but it was stalled for a little bit in lockdown. It all kind of came into motion this summer. And as we are in that process, there's so much up in the air because every school district is different, you guys know, and you can't talk to a school district about their opinions and their quirks and when it comes to placement and IEPs and inclusion, because they're not going to talk to you until you have an address, until you are registering your child in that school. And so, my husband and I are doing the Facebook searches for the school district parent group and excuse us, hi, what's the school district like? And then we're working on the address part. We're waiting to find out if this offer we made on a house is going to come through. And then, maybe by the end of this week we'll have an address. But like there's all those questions of how do you choose a house in the right school district? What will happen once he's enrolled? Will we just be Zooming with strangers instead of Zooming at least with like people we knew before in San Francisco? And this moment in time of jumping into what it's going to look like for him to have a new IEP and be in a new place. It's all such a transition. It's all such kind of a shot in the dark and trusting and hoping. But it's wild. Heather, you shared a tiny bit about what school has been like for the past couple of days. You told us today that tomorrow you're probably quitting school forever. Is that right?
I mean, we're laughing, but it's and maybe everyone's going to have a really great experience. That's my hope and prayer and wish for all of you. And I don't mean to be a downer, but the reality is distance learning doesn't work for my kids who have cognitive differences. So it won't work. And the educators are so incredible. I mean, my oldest daughter Mason, it was tricky because we were already transitioning into junior high. So she's going to 6th grade this year. And that as its own separate thing felt like more than my mama heart could even navigate and handle junior high. And then junior high with my daughter, who is different and has a disability and has speech delays and has difficulty making friends. And I mean, all of the things. And then bless her case carrier at her school has 28 kids on her caseload. And then she teaches 4 different subjects, and she has a 1st grader, a 5th grader, and a 4th grader at home. I mean, it's just, someone needs to just call it and just say, we're not going to do this until, I'll call it. We're not going to do this until we're back in person. And so then the conversation now is, and we're 3 days in, that's it. Thursday, Friday, Monday. How do we get a person, like they both have one-on-ones in their IEPs, and their one-on-one is in the Zoom with them. And that's not helpful at all. And they can't be in person. And so then it's like, well, we're going to put them in a separate, like they can pull out. I'm like, well, okay. Then the amount of skills that need to be acquired by my child to be able to get into that separate space to work with their one-on-one. When are we going to teach that? Like could take a year. We are going to turn here in a positive way, you guys. I promise I'm not just a downer. But the real question is, and I think as parents having kids with disabilities, we do this a lot. We measure the risk and the benefit of the decisions we make for our kids, right? Every decision, there's going to be some kind of a risk and there's going to be some kind of a benefit. And we decide what will benefit our kids most. When does the benefit outweigh the risk? And then we make a decision accordingly. And I feel right now, with distance learning the way that it is in California and in our district, the risk of the stress that is already happening within our home, and it's like creating a more stressful environment overall, and the risk of my kids being turned off to learning feels greater to me than the benefit of them being online trying to figure this out. And so how much more time do I give it? I'm just really processing externally right now with all you friends. But it's also, as parents raising kids with disabilities, it's not, yes, this specific instance is unique, but this isn't the first time I've had to make these decisions for my kid, right? So it's not new in that regard. I mean, I can go all the way back to kindergarten if we want to look at school and preschool even, when similar decisions have had to be made, or I've had to do that risk benefit idea for my kiddos, or surgeries or medications or trips that we've taken, or the list goes on and on. So I guess that's part of my encouraging word to all of us is it's not anything that we're not already equipped to do, right? To make the right choice for our kid right now. We're not equipped to work full-time jobs and be our kids' teachers, OT, PT, speech, one-on-one aid, cafeteria lady. That's real. All of those things. So that's where we're at right now. It's a lot. It's a lot. And again, it's kind of always been a lot. you know? So I've written a couple books, and one of my things I say a lot is we do hard things. And towards the beginning of the pandemic, I said, oh, well, that was rubbish. Like, my new motto is, if it's hard, don't try. Like, don't listen anymore. But I don't mean that. I say that joking and real cheeky, because we have to do the hard thing, and we do the hard thing, and we choose to do it over and over because it's what we do, right? It's what we do as moms who have kids with disabilities, as moms, period. As moms who have kids with disabilities, period. So we'll see. I'll keep you all posted, all right, on what we decide to do. They will go to school tomorrow. But I told them that my husband and I can no longer take time off work to be next to them. So they will log on, and then we'll see what happens. It'll be most fun with my 6-year-old in terms of what happens once I leave the room. It'll be exciting, at least.
I wanted to ask you about that, Heather. Like, since I'm a stay-at-home mom, that's my responsibility. Like, what about for moms who work? So you guys work for yourselves, you and Josh. So you get to be, everybody's at home, but you're used to working at home.
Yeah.
But you're used to sending your kids to school and being able to work at home. So how has that looked like for you, being a working mom and full-time with the kiddos?
It looks like a lot of multitasking, and but the multitasking is creating a more stressful environment within the home, in me, like in my person, and that is reflected in our home. And it looks like not working. And so that can only last so long. So that was my email today to both my kids' IEP teams, was my husband and I have both taken 3 days off work now to work alongside our kids for school, because they need it. So when are you sending an in-person person? Because we can't take tomorrow off. And then they've got all kinds of great ideas in theory.
Can I interject with a question?
I would love that.
Okay. So, hi. And
Hi.
thanks for being here. So we don't start school until the 31st. And so I think I'm like dreaming up, like, I hope they come up with some great idea, because they hinted that some of the kids with the highest needs, they might have some in-person ideas. My kids go to a charter. Anyhow, I'm curious, and maybe even from anybody else that has experience with this, like, what are the schools coming up with in ideas that they believe are going to solve this problem? Because of course you're not the only one. It's like, this is not going to work for my child.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have any, like, what are those conversations that are happening from the school district?
Yeah. I was on a what's it called? Like a task force team this summer as a parent representative to discuss what all those scenarios would look like. So I've been talking with the school for our district for a while now, and everyone is making it up as they go. I mean, they're planning as best they can, but it's changing. I think that's part of the frustration, is the goalpost is not sitting still. It's constantly moving. So we don't know where to aim the ball because the goalpost won't sit still. So, I mean, I think that in that case, it is like a school by school, district by district. But the way distance learning is set up, in theory, does not work for a child with a disability who needs additional support, or younger kids. I don't think it works for kindergarten, first, maybe second. I think by third grade, possibly. My 4th grader's awesome. She's good to go. She's slaying it at distance learning, all on her own. We don't have to be a part of it at all. But I mean, specifically, the conversation now is that my oldest daughter's one-on-one. Well, there's like a program that he will access her Zoom or Google Classroom. And so he is her, but distant. So yeah, all of the solutions, as long as we are apart, don't work. So some districts, I've heard that what you're saying, that the most vulnerable students can start in person. But then that's a whole thing, because then they're wearing masks and the whole thing. So again, my solution, honestly, I know I sound like I'm joking a little bit, but my solution is like, we call it. And here's some supplemental stuff that all kids can do. And when we're ready to go back, let's go back, because the stress of it for everyone involved, I think, is too great a risk for the overall health of people and the education system. And I don't know what everyone's going to do. I'd like some good solutions at some point.
And I was saying to Heather today that I feel like, this year is going to be a wash for everybody. If you pull your kid out of school, everybody else isn't really everyone needs to redo this grade anyway. So I think it's in the big scheme of things, it's not going to be as big of a deal as it can feel like. Oh my gosh, what if my kid has to redo this grade? Maybe a lot of kids are going to need to redo this grade. And maybe we can just kind of shake that one off and make the most out of whatever our situation looks like.
Yeah.
Let's get to the good part of this play. Let's get to scene 4, everybody. Are we ready? Scene 4. Everything is hard, but you're here and you are enough for this moment. I want to tell you about what I learned about self-care in this season of concussions and constantly re-injuring my head and migraines. I learned how to rest for the first time in my life. I learned how to let myself sleep for 8 hours, where I had been a performer my entire life. And the worst possible thing to me was to be somebody who needed to sleep, who didn't just get up early and make things happen before everybody else woke up. I learned that sometimes life forces you to stay in bed, even when you don't want to. And that doesn't mean it wasn't hard on everybody in my family. It doesn't mean that I haven't cried when I heard my boys saying things like, "Mom's always in bed," to each other. But I think it also was a moment that was good. It was a lesson that was good. Because when I let myself stop and sleep, I had to embrace that I'm not perfect and I can't do everything. And it's not my job to single-handedly save my children from whatever monster it feels like is in front of them. I can't always be the one who slays the dragon. I had to embrace good enough parenting. And I think we've all had to embrace good enough parenting during this COVID season. And I know that when I tell that story, and I can tell you honestly that I literally, when quarantine hit and my husband was not leaving for work every day and was able to be home and I was able to sleep as long as I needed to, my concussion symptoms that had stayed with me for 6 months or whatever it was went away in 6 weeks. I still had the migraines, but that fuzziness went away just because I slept at night, just because I slept the 8 hours I needed to sleep every day. And I know that not everybody can rely on a partner to do those things, to step in when you need to rest, when you need to heal, when you need to care for yourself. But I think I know we all have people who love us. I know we all have people who want to take care of us. And I know that we can, when we're at our most vulnerable, we can choose to let ourselves sleep. It might take some work and it may be hard on everybody, but it's possible. And it's that goodness of taking care of ourselves, of finding a way forward to heal, is so significant in letting ourselves be able to slay the dragons in the future.
It's so true. And I love how you just talked about having somebody. And I think that I'm imagining that's part of what this group is. And even if it can't be in person, that Me Too idea, or that just being able to talk to other moms who have a similar experience, it is gold. It is gold. And it can help us get through things. And I want to share a moment I had while I have been on this roller coaster the last, who knows how many days it's been. Around the house around the corner has been keeping track. I think it's 152. That's what it says on the sign outside their house. But I have these moments, and it's not just restricted to during a worldwide pandemic. It's been throughout my whole parenting journey, and it's moments of worrying that I'm not doing enough for my kid as a parent in general. And then as a parent with a child with a disability, when every space we step into, this is all the things that you can do for your child to be whatever it is, to have, to make progress, or to be more like their typical peers, which should not ever be the goal, or whatever it is that people are trying to tell us. And this summer, at a real low point, my oldest daughter, Mason, who is my greatest teacher in life, hands down, but she also can be my biggest stressor in life. And she's also a preteen. And, I have found with my children with disabilities, whenever they are entering a new phase, I don't know what's what. I don't know if the hard thing is their disability, or the hard thing would be happening even if they didn't have a disability. So that's where we're at right now with my oldest daughter in preteen, Bill. And she just spent a whole day doing nothing, like sitting on the floor, listening to music, stimming, doing nothing. And I just said to my husband, I don't know where he was. I text him. Maybe he was upstairs and I was downstairs. I don't know. But I texted him and I just said, I can't. I need her to like read a sight word, or I need her to do a math problem, or I need her to do something besides sit on the floor for another day. I can't do it. And she needs to do more, basically, is what I was saying. And he just texted me back real gently. And he just said, hey, babe, Mason is a miracle. And like full stop. And it's so important to have people in our lives, whether it's a spouse or someone else who loves you, or someone on this Zoom call, to remind us that our kids, as they are this very moment, not with more whatever, fill in the blank, right? Not with less fill in the blank, but who our child is this moment at this time is a miracle. I'm sure every single one of you have literally witnessed miracles with your kid. I can think to my daughter, we were told that she wasn't going to live past 8 years old because of her medical issues. And, she has no medical issues. She's totally healthy. There's nothing that we need to deal with in that regard. And I'm thankful for that. But if there were 100 things that we still needed to work on in terms of her medical needs, she's still a miracle. And today's a miracle. And so I can say that and know it and believe it and hold on to it so tight, because as I have said so many times, my attitude just sucks during this time, and it is so hard. And I stopped doing hard things. So this is a conflicting issue, but it's so hard. And even in the midst of the hard, and no matter where you are at, our kids are freaking miracles. And the fact that we wake up every morning and we do the thing that we need to do to get to the end of the day, and that we get to do that, we get to make it through a day. We're miracles. Like, we are miracle workers, as moms raising our kiddos. And to take it back full circle to the beginning with that poem, and the line that struck me the most, and I somehow will get this poem to all of you guys. Okay, Jessica, I'll send it to you. Like, I'll type it out and we'll get it to everybody. But the line that really, really resonates with me is the line. It says, remember, any little thing that reminds you it's worth it to hang on longer. And I would bet that every person here can think of 1 to 1 million little things to hold on to remember, so that you can remember that it's worth it to hang on just a little bit longer. And so those are the things that I think about to help me hang on. Because dang it, guys, we do hard things.
Great.
Yes.
I love that. I think reminding ourselves that our children are a miracle, whether they're doing successfully in this distance learning or not, whether they're able to attend their therapies or not, that in this time, they're miracles. I want to say real quick too, it's hard during these long days, these mundane days, and also during our world is like caving in with all the big stuff, Black Lives Matter, the children, sex trafficking. I mean, it's like you go and you read, there's so many things layering during this time that I feel like as moms, we can also be in a panic and not even realize it. Like kind of like everything is disheveled. We're in a panic. And I need these reminders. I was on Instagram and it was a beautiful quote that just reminded me that I love my children and God loved them first and He has them. And whatever this year looks like for our children, He has them, and that plan cannot be shaken by a pandemic. And I feel like I need that weight taken off of me. I need that reminder taken off of me that I'm not going to screw this up for them, that God is greater and He has a plan and He will hold them. And like I said, I do homeschool, so I've taken myself out of that distance learning equation a long time ago, but I've needed the reminder that what I'm doing is significant. Sometimes in all this time to be at home, it feels, I have felt insignificant. Like, what am I doing? Okay, if I'm not planning these outings, are we just sitting at home? If this doesn't feel successful, I just hope and pray that for each one of you mamas, you find, like Heather was saying, what makes your household the most peaceful. Because I feel like getting through this in the healthiest mental space possible is what is going to make us feel successful. Not necessarily if our children are reading at the grade level they should be, if they're doing their sight words. I feel like if we emotionally feel well, it's going to help us. And you mamas are equipped for that, and you're courageous, and your children are miracles. And I pray that you hold on to that truth.
That's good, Merce. Micah went ahead and posted the poem for you on the side there, or in the comments. But I'm just going to read this last part because this is where we're headed, friends. All right. So the water is still flowing and you are still growing. You are not out of sight of endless, boundless, glorious light. You have already come so far, Mama. So trust. For these new unknowns, you are more prepared for the journey than you think. So that is all we've got for you, friends. And we're so honored to get to spend this hour and 7 minutes together. And so thankful, Jessica, that you invited us to hang out with you guys.
Oh, thank you so much for being here. I hope somebody was taking notes because I was just trying to be so present, but you guys said so many things that brought chills, and I'm going to hold on to those. And I know that everyone who is a part of this call are going to hang on to those things that you said. And I'm just going to tell myself when Ryan is irrational and anxious that he is my miracle. Ryan, you are a miracle. And I'm going to hold on to that. And thank you for being so real. I so appreciate that you didn't gloss over this with being Sally Sunshines, just really telling us how you really feel and how hard it really is, and just what you've been through and what you're learning, because we're learning with you and we're listening. And well, thank you, Mercedes, Micah, and Heather. Thank you so much for sharing. I so appreciate you being here, and we will have you back.
Yay!
We
love to have you back.
Let's
check in again in another few months and see how everybody's doing.
Right?
Yes. Yes.
If you follow along on social, you'll find out when I pull my children from school. And then I don't know what we're going to do. That's part of the problem because I don't have school. And so then what?
Hopefully next time we all get together, scene 5 will be, now there's a vaccine. Now what? Wouldn't that be great?
Oh my
gosh.
gosh.
Back to normal.
Oh my gosh. Hopefully the next time we're all together, we can be together in person.
Yeah.
Yes. Yes. We would love that.
Well,
good.
We'll reach out again. Thank you so much.
Thank you guys.
Thanks
everybody.
Thanks everybody for coming tonight.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Before we sign out, let's hear a word from our sponsor. This week's episode is sponsored by the one and only Jonas Paul Eyewear. Jonas Paul Eyewear was founded by Ben and Laura Harrison when their son, Jonas, was born nearly blind at birth. This was extremely unexpected news that no parent prepares for, but it gave them a window into the world of blindness, and it helped them start their company, Jonas Paul Eyewear, which is on a mission to help kids feel beautiful and confident in their glasses. Head to jonaspauleyewear.com to learn more. We want to thank Jessica and all of the amazing mamas who are a part of the We Are Brave Together family. We're so grateful we got to spend this evening with you. And as always, we want to thank you, our dear listeners, for listening. We want to thank our editor, Josh Avis, and our producer, Valerie Schlueter, our sponsor, and all of you who have shared the Lucky Few podcast with friends and who have listened faithfully and who continue to cheer us on. Please don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also head over to theluckyfewpodcast.com, head to our Patreon link and learn more about how you can support the podcast and join the Patreon community. And remember that you, our dear listener, supporting your loved one with Down syndrome or any child with a disability, you are a shouter of worth and a narrative shifter. So keep on keeping on. We are cheering for you, and we can't wait to be together on the next episode of the Lucky Few podcast. See you later.